State of the Industry podcast. And here we go. This episode is brought to you by KP Movement Education, your source for health and movement education and coaching. Whether you are a health or fitness professional, a fitness consumer, or perhaps a passive bystander, KP believes that everyone deserves the right to pain-free movement. That's why their memberships and services are designed to educate, empower, and inspire you to create a culture of movement for yourself and those around you. With 2 membership options, you'll find education surrounding developing at-home training programs for yourself or for others, mental health and exercise, lifestyle medicine, and much, much more. Check it out at kineticperformance.ca/memberships. That's kineticperformance.ca/memberships. Hey, Fit Fam, welcome back to the State of the Industry podcast. I am your host, Adam Youngsma. In last week's episode, we had on Dai Manuel, a highly sought-after lifestyle mentor and executive performance coach. He is also a personal friend and mentor of mine. Now, typically when we record our podcast, we record them in 2 parts, and if you've been listening for a while, you know this. But typically we record both parts 1 and part 2 back-to-back on the same day. But before our podcast recording with Dai, we spent about 45 minutes of our scheduled time chatting and shooting the breeze, so we ended up running out of time. Thankfully, Dai was eager to hop back on to finish part 2, and so this is just that, part number 2. If you have never listened to Dai speak before or been coached by him, he has an energy and an optimism that is contagious. So not only is the information he shares during the podcast of great value, but he communicates it in a way that inspires you to take action. You can follow Dai on social media at Dai Manuel or reach out to him through his website, daimanuel.com. Without any further ado, enjoy the podcast and we will see you on the other side. All right, welcome back, Dai, to the State of the Industry podcast. I know it was just yesterday that we recorded part 1, but thank you for taking the time for this. And I want to hop back into it because I know we have a little bit of a time constraint today. Yesterday, we talked a lot about building your tribe and the importance of having that following. That you mentioned the know, like, trust piece, which I know is part of your your first 10 clients framework. So we won't get too far into that because I want them to go and check that out.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I do want to speak a little bit about once you kind of have a little bit of a following, a little bit of a tribe, how do we utilize social media and how do we utilize things like email lists for the automation and starting to actually attract people who may be purchasers of a product or a program that we're providing?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, there's lots of strategies. Obviously, when you start going down the rabbit hole, it feels a lot like Alice in Wonderland, right? It's just like, wow, eat this, don't eat that, drink this, don't drink this. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I know when I first got started, I was very quick to be like, oh, look at what he's doing. Oh, I wonder if I should do that. Oh, what about her? Oh, okay, maybe I'll try that too. And, it's this sort of spray and pray mentality. Or as they say, the cliche, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And I think a lot of people's social media strategy is actually just that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not bad because at least you're there. You're putting content out. You're trying to create engagements, trying to create conversations. So understanding your messaging and your audience are paramount before you start down any social media path, to be quite frank, because if you don't really know what you're speaking to, you don't know what the challenges are that you're looking to solve and how you're going to solve it, or at least communicate that in a way that people are like, oh, this is a great value. Oh, this is very relevant to me and some people that I know. Like there's those little aha moments, those little dopamine hits that when your content pops up on someone's feed and they're like, oh, it's like this has been written for me. And that's also the power of copywriting. And so there's a number of different skill sets that you don't need to be an expert, but you will want to at least have a general understanding of what that means and what is the goal of using some of those strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Because then when you have those kind of things in mind, you can track your progress. You can see if things are working. And I think that's always the challenging part. A lot of people just don't track. They don't look at any of their metrics, and not for vanity purpose. And we sort of talked about this before we hit record. It's some people are just obsessed about getting more numbers. I'm not worried about the numbers. I'm just worried about the right people. Am I speaking to people that truly do resonate with my message, find value in what I have to say, actually take what I say and apply it to their own lives to create positive results and impact? Great. Then I'm checking off all the boxes. I'm not worried about how many followers or how many likes I get. I'm just worried about the content is actually resonating with the people I want it to resonate with.
Yeah.
So it's getting real, right? Like being very real with what your expectations are with social.
Yeah.
The big drawback and why you brought up the email piece is, we can automate certain email sequences, and especially the one sequence that I think is really important for people. And actually, I'll take a step back, and Adam, we have to recognize, I am not an owner of stock in any social media platforms.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't own it, and I never will. Maybe that's a very closed minded thing to say, but I don't anticipate I'll ever own shares in Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, WhatsApp, which is all under the Facebook window now anyways. But these social platforms, you have to recognize it's somebody else's sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
And we are just participants playing in that sandbox. But the rules change all the time. And because of that, it can create a lot of volatility in some people's businesses if they're built with that being the primary driver of traffic, sales, and actually, if your success is completely dependent on those channels, you can see how if those channels change the rules, it can affect your business very quickly.
Yeah.
I'm very active in some of the dad communities, especially down in the States. There's the Dad 2.0 conference and events group, and really cool. So it brings a lot of dads that are leveraging digital platforms to generate extra incomes or to connect with other dads. And it's just a very cool community. But what's really neat about the community is you get some of these guys that are creating great incomes, staying at home, full-time dads, but leveraging social media to either sell products or to work with brands, create content that's sponsored, lots of different ways to monetize what you're doing. But what's unfortunate and what I saw with one person that I knew is he had built a very, very engaged and very profitable, like a 6-figure platform just on Vine.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that are listening to this, if you're quite young, you probably won't even know what Vine is. But if you've been around social media for the last 5-6 years, you'll remember that Vine was something that was owned by Twitter, and it was this thing that would allow you to create these 15-second video loops. And that's all it was. You were making these little videos, and people would watch them, subscribe to the loops, and he was making 6 figures through sponsorships and creating content for brands and all sorts of stuff. But then, if you know the way of Vine, it went the way of the dodo, and Twitter's pulled the plug on it, says we're done with this platform. We're going to let it go. And his business went from 6 figures to 0.
Yeah.
Overnight. That's scary, And I've seen people that rely on Google paid traffic, and Google will change how the algorithm works. They'll change how the paid marketing works. And you'll know what was working before and was very profitable, all of a sudden now is losing you money.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to be in tune with what's going on. So now, with that sort of preface, realize if you don't own the platforms, you don't have control over the rules of the platforms.
Yeah.
There's power in taking your audiences that you do have there and bringing it to something that you do own.
Yeah.
The nice thing is if you use an email platform like Aweber, ActiveCampaign, MailChimp, there's all these third-party platforms that allow you to collect email addresses and contact information and send newsletters, emails, broadcasts, sequences of messages to people that have subscribed saying, hey, I'm interested in your content. I'd like more updates. Thank you. Here's my email. Start sending away. You own that. And it's a great way to onboard people into who you are, what you're about, some of your key messaging, your best content. I call it an indoctrination sequence.
Yeah.
And that's what it's commonly referred to in just the industry. And because you're indoctrinating them into who you are. But it's usually one, maybe a few pieces of content that has made them interested in what you have to say. They saw some value. You put a subtle call to action saying, hey, if you want more great information like this, or more recipes, or more home workouts you can do, just sign up here for my monthly newsletter or my weekly newsletter. Like it's a really simple call to action that a lot of people are very accustomed to. I don't know how many email lists that you're on, Adam, but I know I'm on a lot.
Every morning.
Yeah. And it's like delete. But every once in a while I read a line and I'm like, oh, okay, I want to read that, and I'll open it. And but there's a lot of to be said about that, because you have a lot more control over that. You own that email list, and you can market to it. Build that community, that tribe that we were talking about. It's this development of the know, like, trust, deepening that relationship. And sometimes it feels very one-sided because we're broadcasting, we're projecting all this messaging. But there's always, and a lot of my email sequences, I always have a sign off at the end where I'll have a call to action at times saying, hey, if this resonated with you or any aha moments popped up, just hit reply and let me know what came up for you. And inevitably I get some people that reply, and again, just to create engagement, let them know that there's a real person on the other side that's listening and paying attention. But the cool thing is with this, Adam, once you've set that up, it's automated. You just refer people to a page, they put their name and email in, and then that sequence takes over.
Yeah.
And from that sequence, like in my own sequence, I direct them to other sequences only if they're interested. They have to opt in. They have to express an interest. So I'm not just blasting people for the sake of blasting them. I'm sure we've all had those negative experiences with email lists where you signed up for some free offer. Next thing you know, you're blowing up. Your mailbox is blowing up with offers, save 50%, buy now, you got 3 hours left, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And that serves a purpose. But if you're not transparent with the person that's signing up at the time, that there may be some offers, I find that they'll tend to unsubscribe. They just will. They'll be like, yeah, peace out. This is not of value to me. No, thank you. And that's why I always say you got to build the awareness. That's what social media is great for. You're going to build your awareness. You're going to create content. You're going to expand on your thoughts, your thought leadership, and really just create stuff that inspires, motivates, and educates people. Then from that awareness, that knowledge, hopefully people start to like you, start to trust you. And then when you have these subtle calls to action, people are more apt to actually take action. Because there is that existing relationship and trust there. Yeah. And so that's sort of the foundational pieces. And people may be like, well, how do you do all that stuff? Like, how do I set all that up? Well, man, go to the University of YouTube. There's a lot of information on there on how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of these sites like MailChimp, Aweber, ActiveCampaign, those are some of my favorites because they're not too big of an investment. Some of them are actually free if you only are just starting out, but they have lots of tutorials on how to set up the platforms, how to integrate it, how to schedule. Like the knowledge is free for people to have. Yeah. You just got to take the time to learn it, or you hire someone to do it for you. I mean, that's really your options, right? But I recommend anybody that's transitioning to the online space, this is something that I would encourage you to have, is at least your own email list where you can start to collect people's contact details so you can keep in touch with them, keep them informed, provide value, develop that know, like, trust, and awareness. I have a lot of people that have been on my email list. I have one guy just became a client about 6 months ago. Yeah. And he'd been following me on my online as well as my newsletters for 8 years.
Yeah.
8 years. That's a long sales cycle. But, but the neat thing is, and I like to let people know this, is he never engaged on any of my social posts. So he was never commenting, never liking. He's just more of someone that was just watch. He doesn't engage with stuff. Yeah. But he does consume content. And there's a lot of people that are just like that out there. Yeah. And that's why I like to let people know, and you've seen me talk in my social media presentation where I really want to emphasize this. There's a lot of people that see your stuff, but may never engage, may never comment, may never like, may never share. They may never sign up, but they are aware of who you are, what you do, and they are consuming some of the posts that you're putting up. So, social is working, even though sometimes the data or the analytics may not be directly correlated to that.
Yeah.
like it may not be as evident. But I see this pop up in my own business. I'll go to an event and they'll be like, oh, weren't you just here or here? And people ask me, well, I saw you were in Bali and you just moved back, and like, what's going on? I'm like, well, how do you know all this? And I know that they've probably seen it on my social channels because I share it all.
Yeah.
But they never engage, they never like. They never show up on my own feed,
Yep.
but they're aware. They
Yeah.
are consuming the content. And so this is all important stuff to realize, because I know there's times where we get discouraged, right?
Yeah.
We put stuff out and it's like, man, well, my mom liked it. My brother liked it.
Yeah.
Look, my uncle that I haven't spoken to for 10 years, he actually had a comment on that. I might have to delete that one, but
Yeah. Yeah.
either way, it can be discouraging at times. And that's why it's a long-term play. It's not a short-term, unless you're wanting to go the paid marketing route. But once you go down the paid route, it's really hard to step away from the paid route, because you get used to a certain amount of traffic flow, right?
Yeah.
And so I usually think that there's a hybrid model can be a nice place to step off to once you've got a foundation set up.
Yeah, and I think like from our discussions and from a lot of the research that I've done on this topic as well, there's an art to kind of the setup of the sequence. There's an art to the actual writing of the subject line and kind of what that first kind of intro teaser is. But it's a lot of the stuff specifically on things like social media. Like social media is about consistency. If you're not on constantly, you're not putting out stuff on a fairly regular basis, then the amount that you go into other people's inbox who maybe don't follow you is a lot lower, right? So like there's a lot in there, but as you said, it's not that hard to do if you put in the time to figure out how to do it, right? Like it's actually not that difficult to do.
No.
And I know you, because I actually scrolled through because I've followed you since you've, I think, had like 6 or 9,000 followers, and now you're at 30 some, I think 34,000 or something like that, 37,000.
Yeah.
And like you post pretty much every day, right? Like every single day. And it's not always a long post that has a whole bunch of information. It's your life, it's your active lifestyle, and you're demonstrating exactly what you talk about and then what you then sell, right? Is your coaching for, like, you're a lifestyle mentor, you're a high performance life coach, right? Like and a business coach, like that's what you do. And so you can see that when you go on your Instagram, you see that. And I find with a lot of people, they just post randomness, and it's like, I don't know what you are or what you're doing, right? Like what you're standing for, because there's no consistency with, as you said, the post. They haven't figured out what that target market is that they're going after, right?
Absolutely. And I think you hinted at it there, this idea of showing versus telling, and I think it's a wonderful thing to keep front of mind, or a filter to apply things through. It's like, often, I mean, I always say, like, if I was reading this post, like it showed up in my feed, how would I feel? Based on this post, would I feel motivated? Would I feel inspired? Will I feel like I've learned something? Do I feel entertained? Is there any sort of emotional response from the piece of content? And is it me just being sort of broadcasty, or, pardon? Well, you know what? I mean, we all see this. Let's be frank. It's there's sometimes the pulpit moment, right, where people take social and it's a place for them to preach from. It's that pulpit. Here's my audience. I'm going to just and espouse all my opinions, or I'm going to tell you what you should be doing. And I know for myself personally, this is my own personal experience, I don't like those kind of posts. I'm like, I don't want to be told to do anything. I like to be invited to maybe try something. I like to be shown what the benefits are of trying something different that I might not be trying. Great. That teaches me. It inspires me. It shows me what's possible, rather than someone just saying, hey, go do this. It's sort of that parent child relationship, right? And I think there's a lot of that out there, especially, right when we talked about this yesterday a little bit in the first part, where I know a lot of trainers that were highly stressed and feeling a lot of pressure when the gyms started to close because of the pandemic, and their businesses changed overnight, and a lot of people went straight to online, and it was just a lot of sales messages, and a lot of them were very similar to one another. So it's just like this wave of just, like, I'm like, none of this speaks to me, and it read desperation.
Yeah.
And I think people felt that,
Yeah.
because that does get transmitted. But is that the emotion you were looking to elicit in people? And
Yeah.
I know for sure a lot of the trainers that I've spoken to, no,
Yeah.
that was not what they were trying to go for. And so there is being a little bit more tactful and always
Yeah.
ask yourself, how would I feel if I was, the person on the other side receiving this content,
Yeah.
and that's, I think the Bible talks about that, right? Treat
Yeah.
others as you want to be treated. I think
Yeah.
that's a pretty basic
Yeah.
rule of thumb, and it definitely applies to social media too.
Yeah. And I think what you said there, specifically surrounding trainers at the beginning of something like this pandemic, where the fitness industry was flipped on its head.
Yes, that's right.
Like it's changed, no matter what anybody says, like it's changed forever now, because
Absolutely.
Like John Goodman, who does the PTDC and the
Mhm.
Online Trainer Academy, sorry.
Yeah.
He wrote a post about, the fitness industry being dead, but I don't know if it's dead so much as people have realized the fragility of it,
Right.
and that they have to have multiple streams of income, or at least a plan in place that they can move into from that in-person to online.
Correct.
And so I like what you said, when they're like, the people who hadn't prepared for something like that,
Yeah.
they felt that emotion of, oh my goodness, what's going on? So they're panicky. And then, as you said, that then the posts that they post, because they feel panicky, the
Yes.
posts come off as being panicky.
Correct.
And it's not to say that they don't have quality content, but everybody
Oh, yeah.
then feels like everybody's feeling panicked at that point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's understanding that if you don't have that in place, it's a long-term play. Like it's something like, it's not just going to come in the next week or two. And this instant gratification society, it takes some time to maneuver into that realm.
Yes. Correct.
Right. And develop
Correct.
that. So I like that you said that. So you mentioned something at the beginning about staying on top of changes in kind of social media and like the algorithms that Google uses, even Instagram with their either paid advertising, Facebook with their paid advertising. How do you stay on top of things like that? How do you make sure that you stay on top of those?
So yeah, I am not a full-time person in that realm, right? Like I'm not working in that industry. Like I utilize the industry for my own personal business and personal reasons. And, but I'm not someone that's in the industry all the time. So I definitely look for third parties and experts, authorities that are full-time in the space. So like Social Media Examiner, wonderful website, great content. Like it's crazy. I've never bought a product from them ever. I'm on the email list. I do get the occasional offers to join certain offers that they have, but I've never bought. But I love their content. Like it's very timely. And when you look at the website, it's like I really feel it needs an update. It's been like the same way forever, but the content is solid. And I learn a lot from that. There's also Ryan Dice of digitalmarketer.com. Again, great resource. Gary Vaynerchuk, wonderful resource. I went through a period of time where I had to unplug from Gary, though. Gary V. Because when you get to know him, like I've read all his books, I've even read a couple of them twice. I love them. I think there's so much great content and information and strategies within it. But when you start to listen to him on all his platforms, whether it be Facebook Lives or his podcast or whatever, for me, I had Gary burnout. It was just like, okay, I can't drink any more of this, and but overall, those are some of the main people. There's also Sunny Leonard-Doozy. She's got a great YouTube channel. She's a local Vancouverite, Canadian. And she has just a wonderful platform that really talks to video marketing specifically. And so she's got some really smart stuff, and she often shares a lot of tips and tricks, like little hacks on her YouTube channel. So that's another one that I like. Those would be the primary ones. Like those are my trusted resources. There's a lot of other newsletters I get, but I find that, they're hit and miss. For those that are really into Instagram, later.com. Great resource. I like to use that tool for scheduling purposes with my Instagram account. Like this week I'm in Whistler. I'm found I've had a bit more time to do stuff sort of on the fly, but a lot of time I'll schedule out posts. Just because that's the way it works with my calendar, and it takes that pressure off of me. And then that way I can focus on the stories. Because stories I find are very much in the know. It's happening right now, and that's the way I like to look at it. I don't schedule stories, even though you can. I mean, there's a lot of people that do that. I don't. I haven't adopted that yet, but
Yeah.
not to say that I won't.
Yeah.
But later also has that functionality.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. All they focus is on Instagram, so their information as far as the algorithms and changes and feature updates, it's just super cool. And then they have lots of tutorials that will walk you through that stuff.
Yeah.
And they're also owned by a Canadian. It's actually Greg
Nice.
Smith's brother. Greg Smith, we talked about, the guy that owns Thinkific,
Yeah. Yeah.
the Vancouverite. He's the one that really turned me on to this whole idea of digitizing knowledge.
Yeah.
He knows that space really well. And so yeah, his brother owns Later. Like, it's pretty
Nice.
cool. It's Power Brothers, man. It's
Yeah,
neat.
for sure.
But yeah, so sorry. Yeah, you asked me the question. What are my resources? Those are the ones.
Okay.
Those are like the ones. If people are
Perfect.
just following those ones, my goodness, it's fast forward learning.
Yeah. And I think, there's a lot to do. Like you mentioned, scheduling posts, another piece of automation that people can use for something like Instagram, right? Like, because when you look at the actual posts themselves, most of that stuff isn't the right now. As you said, the story is the right now, what's going on, what am I doing? But the posts can be kind of planned in a way that they tell a story, right?
Yes,
so a lot of people pattern their posts with different things. I know if you scroll enough down on yours, you were doing a pattern for a while where you had this white thing down the center, and then you had the two on the other side. And and I think being able to do that, you put one day aside or maybe a few hours on a weekend to put together your posts, schedule them for the week, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
That's right.
Right? You don't have to think about it.
And keep note, like you did just touch on it there. You said, maybe it's a half a day to start with. Well, believe me, the more you do this, it's like flexing a muscle. It gets stronger, it gets more efficient, takes less time to recover. Like it's the same with these types of tools. When you first start using them, you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like a fish out of water. This is hard. This doesn't feel natural. This is like, even like, oh, what am I going to write to this picture? I don't know. Geez, there's just a lot of, there's more questions than answers. Right. But stay the course. Just push through that. I mean, those that are in the fitness space, that first workout back after a big break, it sucks. It does. But it gets better. And the same will apply with your social media and social media marketing. And don't worry about all the channels. Just figure out 1, 2, at most 3 that you are feeling really good about, that the majority of the people you've identified that you want to work with are on those platforms. So for me, it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Like those are my 3. And the other ones I've got a presence on, but I'm not very active on. But I let my audience know that. I said, like, I always say that I'm most active on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You want to connect with me on one of those 3. Boom, done. So anyways, lots to unpack there, I know.
I would say I probably spend the same amount of time or have the same top 3 that I utilize. Like as you said, like I'm on Twitter, but I don't ever go on Twitter. Right. The post is sent from Instagram to Facebook to Twitter, right? So I kind of get the post, but I don't really do much. Like I'm not a big tweeter. I don't have these really short, quick things to say. I'm not that witty. So I usually stick to Instagram, Facebook, and then I do a lot of stuff when we're looking at creating connections and networking on LinkedIn. I don't do as much posting or commenting on LinkedIn. So I'll probably have to start doing that a lot more because I do see a lot of people posting on there now. It's become much more of a social network than it was before, when it was just here's my business kind of profile resume type of platform.
It's definitely, it is a social platform. Now it is. And I mean, but the content is very different. Like when you're looking in your feed, in your LinkedIn feed versus say an Instagram feed versus a Facebook feed, you can tell they're all very different. And like even Instagram and Facebook, specifically Instagram, this idea of microblogging is really alive and well. It's sort of what, Tumblr. You remember Tumblr back in the day? Like it was very much like that. And I find that Instagram is very much like a Tumblr. It's much more engagement, easier platform to use, of course,
Hmm.
much bigger user base.
Yeah.
But I really like it for that aspect. So when you were talking about, yeah, I have short bits and I have long bits. Yeah, now some of those longer posts are basically I've modified blog articles I've done in the past and then tweaked it to fit an image that I have from something recent, an
Yeah.
experience. So, and this just goes, which I wanted to make sure I touched on, was this idea of repurposing content.
Yeah.
Because I know it's one thing I get from people all the time. It's like, how do you come up with all this content? I'm like, well, I've been doing it for 14 years. I've also been in the fitness and wellness industry for 25 years. And, I know a few things about this stuff,
Yeah.
like just through my own personal life and my life experiences. So I've got a lot of stuff I can talk to.
Yeah.
But I have to ask myself, well, what's really relevant to the people I'm trying to connect to or the people I'm trying to add value to?
Yeah.
Make an impact, shift, pivot, whatever you want to call it, create a response, in somebody. And that helps me narrow it to at least themes. And then from those themes, I've got lots of content I've already created in the past.
Yeah.
And so taking that and repurposing it to fit the platform,
Hmm.
that's where some of my time goes, is just taking that content. And if I can take one great piece of content, turn it into half dozen other pieces of micro content,
Yeah.
awesome. And a lot of times I'll have a link just linking people back to the original blog article
Yeah.
that I created, just saying like, hey, if you want more information on this, check out this,
Yeah.
like simple enough. And inevitably I see in my links in the tracking. Yeah. I get direct traffic from those posts. So I know it's working.
Yeah.
I know that people are reading it and actually taking the action that I was hoping they would, and because when they get on my website, they may read that article and then there'll be maybe a pop-up or a little invitation on the side. Hey, if you like this content, well, you're going to love this stuff. Why not sign up here, put your name and email in. I'll send you a little gift. And that gets them into the indoctrination sequence that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So you can sort of see that's just a subtle way of how I'm taking one person from a platform that I'm on to a platform that I have a little bit more control with how I communicate with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that you've done a few, I've done a few of these little ebooks that we have both have available. And yeah, just taking small bits of content from that ebook. You write the one ebook, you can make it into probably 4 or 5 different blog posts if you wanted to. You can chop it up into, each blog post could be, depending on the length of it, probably 5, 6 Instagram or Facebook posts, right? You could make it more business-like or business-oriented towards something like Instagram. Like there's a lot of things that you can do with something like that with one piece of writing, right? And so like I always recommend, if you have a product that a service that you're trying to sell, creating a short ebook. And the ebook doesn't have to be long. Like it can be, I think a couple of mine are 6 to 8 pages maybe.
Perfect.
And there's some videos, some charts, some things like that. But there's always there's a call to action. There's a very specific purpose for that one ebook. And I think that's a great way to utilize content, as you said, in multiple different platforms and repurpose it.
One of my favorite things to do, and just real quick on this note, because it doesn't take much to set up this flow, is as you know, in the past, my wife and I have done a lot of Facebook Lives, especially for a period of time there. It was almost daily for 2 years, Facebook Lives, with our Whole Life Fitness Manifesto program. And it was great, but we could take that video and you could, or some of the videos that were more instructional based, not necessarily the workout based ones, but we'd have some that would be motivational based, inspirational based, maybe education on nutrition or different types of biohacks, lots of that's really just good content that we know that people resonate with. And so once you know that you've got a piece of content that people are actually liking, that's a prime piece of content that I would earmark to be repurposed. And so let's just say you have this great video. You can literally just rip the audio file, turn it into a mini podcast. Right. You could also get that transcribed with online. There's a site called Descript. It's a little tool. I love it. I throw my video file in there or my audio file, and it will then spit out the transcript. I've got to correct it and edit it because every once in a while, you get this. It doesn't interpret, especially proper names. A lot of the times you get these weird things, but it's not like it's ready to go. But then you polish it over 5 or 10 minutes, and now you've got a blog article. Right. Or like you just said, you cut it into multiple little micro posts that you could put on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn. But you can see how all of a sudden I've taken this one piece of content, this one video, turned into multi pieces of content. And even in those cases, when I've transcribed it, I've turned some of those into a mini PDF download, like a little mini ebook or a
Yeah.
pamphlet type download. And so there's so many ways that you can take one amazing piece of content and really stretch it. So
Yeah.
you've got a week's worth of content from that one thing that you did.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, like, if you're someone that's okay with doing videos, video content can be a great piece, because once you've got that, you can do that whole process that I just talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I had a gentleman contact me, and it was pretty cool being able to like almost instantly transcribe something like a podcast, like an hour-long podcast. It instantly transcribes. It tells you kind of who's saying what. The interesting thing is always, specifically in the fitness industry, is some of the words
I bet
they just cannot transcribe that. And so I'm going through and I'm like, that's not at all what that says. And you
I
just
can imagine you too, like with your background, it's talking about different anatomies and musculatures and like, gosh, some of those technical terms. I mean, I wouldn't know how to spell them myself, even if I heard them the right way. So I can imagine the AI and some of these tools trip up on those too.
Yeah, but really cool to be able to do that. And as you said, turn it into a blog post or something like that from it. And you don't even actually have to write. Like, I love talking far more than I love writing, because writing, I feel like I'm very much a perfectionist when I'm writing. It has to be perfect.
Right.
And that slows me down so much. And I've had to get better at understanding, okay, this doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to say every single thing. How would I say, like, I write how I talk. And so I like it to flow in that way, because I like it to be as if I am sitting in the room with the person and they're talking. They hear my voice in their head when they're reading. Right? Like, I like that kind of writing.
Love that.
Well, I really wanted to get into talking about decision fatigue and all that, but I don't think we really have time because we're coming near to the end here.
No worries.
So what I want to do is, I love to do this with everybody who comes on, is I want to just do a quick little lightning round. It's 3 questions, and I just want, you may have thought about it before because you actually get the questions well in advance, but just kind of first things that come to your mind for all 3 of these questions. So the first one is the top 3 books that you have read on any topic.
Oh, well, one of my favorite books that I tend to read regularly, at least once a year, is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And I really like the audio version that's narrated by Jeremy Irons. So if because he acts out all the characters, it's just amazing. And if you're not familiar with Paulo Coelho, he's just a wonderful writer. And the book, The Alchemist, it is a fiction work with a lot of spiritual undertones. That's just the nature of his writing. But it talks all about this idea of trusting your instinct and getting out of your own way, but also this idea that we're all on a journey.
Nice.
We're always progressing, and it's a beautiful story and very inspiring. So I always like that one. I mentioned yesterday, actually, Man's Search for Meaning.
Yep.
By Viktor Frankl. Probably one of the most profound books I've read in the last decade. And I wish I read it when I was a lot younger, to be quite frank. Like, it's that profound in what he talks about. And just real short background: Viktor Frankl survived a number of concentration camps, including Auschwitz, but he was a psychologist, and so you can imagine a psychologist going through that very traumatic time in history, and being just a Jewish person, and his entire communities and literally everybody he knew being persecuted by the Nazis, and just that experience and that internal reflection while observing what was happening. So the first half is really the recollection and the recounting of that story of what his experiences were. Very, just there's some parts there where I had to put the book down, like it's pretty
heavy,
dark at times, but the second half talks about logotherapy, this idea of being very purpose driven and being aligned with your purpose. And if you do that, it's amazing. You can endure any pain, right? When you have a strong enough why. And so that's the second one. And then, there's a bunch of other books that would easily tie in the third place, but most recently, if I'm thinking about one of the books I enjoyed the most, is a book called Fearvana. And Fearvana is by Akshay. I can never pronounce his last name. I think it's Nanati. And just a great book. It's fairly new, but it talks all about that fear never goes away. It's there. It's always there. but learning to not only accept fear, but to harness fear in a way that allows to propel us and trust ourselves to be able to overcome, or at least work with fear.
Yeah.
And so he's got lots of data, like from a science background. So he's very data driven.
Okay.
And so it's really cool. It's not like a theoretical book. It's actually a practical handbook to how to leverage fear and utilize fear to achieve the things that you want to achieve in your life.
Yeah. I
And
love it.
really like remove all the limitations. So
Yeah.
those are the 3 books right now that are front of mind. But man, I've got a long list. So
Yeah.
yeah, there
It's
you go.
actually interesting. For the first time, I haven't read any of those books.
Oh,
So
cool. Right
usually
on.
when people give me their 3 books, I've read
Yeah.
at least one of the books.
Nice.
I've never read
Cool.
any of those books, so I'm gonna have to pick all those up and
Well, I have
add
to
it
be
to my
fair. The
reading list.
last 2 that I mentioned were just, I have a men's group that I've been participating and facilitating for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And we have a monthly book club. And so the last 2
Nice.
books that we've read were those last 2 I just suggested. So that's why they're very front of mind. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I really wish I was introduced these books a lot earlier, because
Yeah.
they were that impactful. And I think that they really speak to it's that motivation quality within us, right? That
Yeah.
inspiration that we're always seeking, rather than always having to be motivated by the externals. It's learning how to leverage the intrinsic side of our motivations. And I find those books, all 3 of them, speak to that really well.
Yeah. I love it. Awesome. All right. Question number 2,
Yeah.
your top 3 mentors along your journey thus far.
Oof. Well, my former partner at the company I co-founded with, he was one of my first business mentors, and to an extent, a bit of a life mentor as well. More so on the business side, and his name is James Newman, and so he's still the CEO of Fitness Town, which is a Western Canadian company, and so he was one of my first true mentors. I've worked with a number of other coaches as well for certain periods of time. One, just trying to think. Yeah, I guess Simon Lovell was a mentor of mine for about a year, and he's got the Fitpreneurs. If anyone's ever heard of that, Fitpreneurs. He's got a really cool site, great podcast, and some great content. He's pivoted in his own business, so he's not focusing so much on the fitness and health businesses, coaching and mentorship side of things anymore. But if you look up his book and some of his old content, he's really savvy when it comes to this digital marketing space. And I learned a lot from him in my time working with him and his team. And I gotta think, the third one, like I mentioned Yuri Elkim, and I only worked with him for a brief period of time, for a couple months, but he was very impactful. Like I told you, that one question really shifted a lot of things for me. It's like, what do I have to do to make it impossible for my clients not to succeed? That question still to this day, like it's that one thing that's resonated the most with me. But he runs a great event. Well, unfortunately not this year.
Yeah.
But Healthpreneurs, they usually do an in-person event once a year, and it is phenomenal. If people have the opportunity to go and check that out, if you're in the wellness space, it is an event to go to. And we went to it the very first year, and unfortunately, we were living in Bali the years subsequently.
Yeah.
But now that we're back in North America, next time they run that event, my wife and I plan to attend again. Like it's
Awesome.
just that good of an event, and you learn a boatload, but you meet some amazing people in this industry. And so those are 3 that are front of mind right now, that are most current on my journey. And then there's a lot of personal mentors that I have. I gotta mention my wife. As I said, we've been dating one another for about 20 years, and she is the ultimate litmus test, right? She keeps me on the straight and narrow, and also very often the voice of reason. I got to put, if Chrissy doesn't approve, I struggle with doing it, fully committing to it. You know what it's like. You're married now. Like, come on. It's the one person that knows everything, all the good, the bad, and the ugly of me, and accepts me anyways. So I do trust her input more than anybody else. And so that's sort of the bonus one there.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that, because I feel the exact same way. My wife is hugely supportive of what I do, and being in the fitness industry, specifically during this time when the pandemic hit, with the ups and downs, because I was doing pretty much all my revenue was live education. And she was probably the biggest cheerleader in my corner all the time when I felt like I got no idea what I'm doing anymore, or how I'm going to do this, right? Just like frustration, like all of the emotions. she, and I know your wife as well, for you, it like just huge, not only helping you think through issues, but also giving you kind of a 30,000-foot view, but from a very personal, very trusting or trustworthy source, right? And
That's right.
yeah, that's a huge thing to be able to have in your corner, is a significant other like that. And I think we are both super lucky with the women that we have in our lives. So
Agreed.
um,
Score.
yeah. All right, last question. What would
Sure.
Dai of today say to 20-year-old Dai?
Oh man, just trust in yourself. Not be worried so much about what everybody else thinks. Just worry about what you think. Like I think about the earlier days, and I was so ego driven, but also worried about what people would think about me. Wanted to be perceived a certain way, and I would often prioritize that.
Yeah.
And also compromise certain core values in an effort to maintain that. As an example, like I haven't had a drink for over 10 years, and this is not a private matter. I've made it very public. I've shared my story, and it was something that I learned to cope with a lot of stress and anxiety, and it was my way to relax and unwind, was to have a couple drinks at the end of every day. And sometimes a couple drinks lead to a few more. Yeah. And it just became a very specific habit in my life. And when I think back on it, a lot of those habits were really ingrained in my 20s, like really ingrained. And, at 32, almost 33, that's where I made a choice to change things. And this last 10 years, I've learned more about myself, but also just the world in general, than I had in the previous 33. But it was also because I put myself, you take away the crutch, right? We all have crutches. We all have these little things that we cope or we put up with, right? Like with these nagging little things that it's like, oh, okay, well, it doesn't hurt that bad, so I'll let it go. And we just sort of go through our life accepting that that's just the way it is. And, when we decide that, no, I don't want to accept this anymore. I deserve to be happier. I deserve to be more productive. I deserve to be able to better achieve the things I want to achieve in shorter periods of time. And when you start looking at the things that are holding us back from running, it's these crutches. For me, it was alcohol, and I took away the crutches and I was like, oh man, I've got a pretty nasty limp right now. I got to learn to walk again, and then fortunately for me, I found some support. I found some people that were willing to mentor or coach or listen to me, just provide a space for me to just, talk about my frustrations. My wife was instrumental in that period. And, it changed everything, everything. We wouldn't know each other today, Adam. Honestly, I don't know if we would, had I not made that decision 10 years ago to stop drinking. Because I know the trajectory my life was going. And so I just wanted to at least share that, because it's, I know social media at times can feel like smoke and mirrors, right? It's like, oh, everyone's life's great. Yay. And I try to share some of the darker moments too, because that's just life, and it is what it real. Is. But it's I do want to encourage people, if you got those crutches, well, kick them away. It's going to be scary as hell, but it will be worth it.
Yeah. I love that. All right. So just to wrap up, because I know you've got a lot going on, where can listeners go if they want to find out more about the services that you provide, the products that you provide, or even just more about you as a person and a mentor that they can follow, whether or not they interact or don't interact? How can they do that?
Well, I think the easiest way is Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. As I mentioned before, I tend to share a lot of content on those channels and engage with people that engage with me. That's where most of my time spent. I want to let people know that. Like I don't spend a lot of time on social, scanning and commenting on just posts. I do it every once in a while, but it's not part of my everyday, because I realize it just takes a lot of time and energy. And I tend to focus more of my time and energy on content creation and also interacting with those that engage with my content. And so, like I say, it's just, if you send me a private message, a DM or whatever, say, hey, Dai, I heard you on Adam's podcast. Really liked what you said about this. And hey, this was my aha. That's simple enough. Or just even saying, hey, how you doing? Like, I love that. It's a great place to begin. And as far as more information about me, my website's just a boatload of content, but it's all lifestyle orientated, not a lot of business talk there. I save some of that for more so for LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And but yeah, like I said, just reach out. I'm happy to have a conversation anytime.
Yeah. Yeah. And if for any listeners, if you do reach out, he is absolutely phenomenal. Great human being. I want to thank you, Dai, for coming on. I miss you. I miss your family. And I will definitely chat with you soon.
Absolutely, Adam. And thanks again for the opportunity, and loving what you're putting out, man. It's we need more of this. And so I know I'll be looking forward to listening regularly and learning. And I look forward to either you being in Vancouver next or me being out east. So either way, we'll figure it out. We'll make it work.
State of the Industry Podcast.